Okay, before y'all chop my head off with a silver-bladed guillotine, may I just say that I did not know that a drove of pigs would react that way to a super mega pig potion.
Now, fair and honorable jury, y'all can see Dr. Hyde lying through her trap, right? We all know that is not the only thing you did, and that is not the only reason why you are here.
Okay, the robots were not my fault either, to be fair. I really just wanted to give this town that I love a head start in the upcoming robot age. I mean, think about it. We already have steam-powered everything. The next step is, of course, gonna be robots.
Okay, then why can they shoot laser beams?
'Cause the local kids kept kicking it down and jumping on it.
Up, Your Honor, there it is. There is our evidence that Dr. Hyde did indeed kill little Timmy.
No. Little Timmy was not my fault, nor was it the fault of my robots or of the super mega pigs. Look, let me just state my case, and y'all will see that I am perfectly innocent. I was born in the year 18 to a large fortune, endowed besides with excellent parts, inclined by nature to industry, fond of the respect of the wise and good among my fellow men, and thus, as might have been supposed, with every guarantee of an honorable and distinguished future. And indeed, the worst of my faults was a certain impatient gaiety of disposition, such as has made the happiness of many, but such as I found it hard to reconcile with my imperious desire to carry my head high, and wear a more than commonly grave countenance before the public. Hence it came about that I concealed my pleasures, and that when I reached years of reflection and began to look round me and take stock of my progress and position in the world, I stood already committed to a profound duplicity of life. Many a man would have even blazoned such irregularities as I was guilty of, but from the high views that I had set before me, I regarded and hid them with an almost morbid sense of shame. It was thus rather the exacting nature of my aspirations that any particular degradation in my faults that made me what I was, and, with even a deeper trench than in the middle of men, severed me in those provinces of good and ill which divide and compound man's dual nature. In this case, I was driven to reflect deeply, inveterably, on the hard law of life, which lies at the root of religion and is one of the most plentiful springs of distress. Though so profound a double dealer, I was in no sense a hypocrite. Both sides of me were in dead earnest. I was no more myself when I laid aside restraint and plunged in shame than when I labored in the eye of day at the furtherance of knowledge or the relief of sorrow and suffering. And it chanced that the direction of my scientific studies, which led wholly toward the mystic and the transcendental, reacted and shed a strong light on this consciousness of the perennial war among my members. With every day, and from both sides of my intelligence, the moral and the intellectual, I thus drew steadily nearer the truth, by whose partial discovery I have been doomed to such a dreadful shipwreck, that man is not truly one, but truly two. I say two, because the state of my own knowledge does not pass beyond that point. Others will follow. Others will outstrip me on the same lines, and I hazard the guess that man will be ultimately known for a mere polity of multifarious, incongruous, and independent denizens. I, for my part, from the nature of my life, advanced infallibly in one direction and in one direction only. It was on the moral side, and in my own person, that I learned to recognize the thorough and primitive duality of man. I saw that of the two natures that contended in the field of my consciousness, even if I could rightly be said to be either, it was only because I was radically both, and from an early date, even before the course of scientific discoveries had begun to suggest the most naked possibility of such a miracle. I had learned to dwell with pleasure, as a beloved daydream, on the thought of the separation of these elements. If each, I told myself, could be but housed in separate identities, life would be relieved of all that was unbearable. The unjust might go his way, delivered from the aspirations and remorse of his more upright twin, and the just could walk steadfastly and securely on his upward path, doing the good things in which he found his pleasure, and no longer exposed to disgrace and penitence by the hands of this extraneous evil. It was the curse of mankind that these incongruous people were thus bound together, that in the agonized womb of consciousness these polar twins should be continuously struggling. How then were they dissociated? I was so far in my reflection when, as I have said, a side light began to shine upon the subject from the laboratory table. I began to perceive more deeply than it has ever yet been stated the trembling immateriality, the mist-like transience of this seemingly so solid body in which we walk attired. Certain agents I found to have the power to shake and to pluck back that fleshy vestment, even as a wind might toss the curtains of a pavilion. For two good reasons, I will not enter deeply into this scientific branch of my confession. First, because I have been made to learn that the doom and the burden of our life is bound forever on man's shoulders. And when the attempt is made to cast it off, it but returns upon us with more unfamiliar and more awful pressure. Second, because as my narrative will make, alas, too evident, my discoveries were incomplete. Enough, then, that I not only recognized my natural body for the mere aura and effulgence of certain of the powers that made up my spirit, but managed to compound a drug by which these powers should be dethroned from their supremacy, and a second form and countenance substituted, none the less natural to me, because they were the expression, and bore the stamp, of lower elements in my soul. I hesitated long before I put this theory to the test of practice. I knew well that I risked death for any drug that so potently controlled and shook the very fortress of identity, might, by the least scruple of an overdose, or at the least inopportunity in the moment of exhibition, utterly blot out that immaterial tabernacle which I looked to it to change. But the temptation of a discovery so singular and profound at last overcame the suggestions of alarm. I purchased at once from a firm of wholesale chemists a large quantity of a particular salt which I knew, from my experiments, to be the last ingredient required, and late one accursed night I compounded the elements, watched them boil and smoke together in the glass, and when the ebullition had subsided, with a strong glow of courage, drank off the potion. The most racking pangs succeeded, a grinding in the bones, deadly nausea, and a horror of the spirit that cannot be exceeded at the hour of birth or death. Then these agonies began swiftly to subside, and I came to myself as if out of a great sickness. There was something strange in my sensations, something indescribably new, and, from its very novelty, incredibly sweet. I felt younger, lighter, happier in body. Within I was conscious of a heady recklessness, a current of disordered central images running like a mill race in my fancy, a solution of the bonds of obligation, an unknown but not an innocent freedom of the soul. I knew myself, at the first breath of this new life, to be more wicked, tenfold more wicked, sold a slave to my original evil, and the thought in that moment braced and delighted me like wine. I stretched out my hands, exulting in the freshness of these sensations, and in the act I was suddenly aware that I had lost in stature. About a week has passed, and I am now finishing this statement, under the influence of the last of the old powders. This then is the last time, short of a miracle, that I can think my own thoughts or see my own face, now how sadly altered in the glass. Nor must I delay too long to bring my writing to an end, for if my narrative has hitherto escaped destruction, it has been a combination of great prudence and great good luck. Should the throes of change take me in the act of writing it, I will eventually tear it to pieces. But if some time shall have elapsed after I laid it by, my wonderful selfishness and circumscription to the moment will probably save it once again from that action of my other side's spite. And indeed the doom that is closing on both sides of me has already changed and crushed me. Half an hour from now, when I shall again and forever re-endue that hated personality, I know how I shall sit shuddering and weeping in my chair, or continue with the most strained and fear-struck ecstasy of listening to pace up and down this room, my last earthly refuge, and give ear to every sound of menace. Will I die upon the scaffold, or will I find courage to release myself at that last moment? God knows, I'm careless.
All right. You need to stop right there with your really dense writing. You built laser shooting robots, and you gave our pigs super potion. So now they are like huge, angry, and scary like the Hulk.
Do we have the Hulk?
Doesn't matter. What matters is you need to answer for your crimes.
Silver-bladed guillotine, here I come.
No, that would be too easy for you. Instead, you are going to go out to the outskirts of town, and you're going to wrestle all the super pigs that you created. And you're going to put them back in the pen, and then you'll be released from your punishment.
And what about the robots?
Oh, the robots? We keeping them for ourselves.
Hey, y'all, future people. It's Marsha O'Hare with Nightmare Public Broadcasting. Here to say that if you are hearing this, then Nightmare Public Broadcasting is either still crossing the United States or is over on the east side. The patrons who are here to hold my hand as I close this chapter of my life are Zemo, Rocco, Delagus Announcer, Ayafyukla, Yokofu, Pingley, Jerry West Script, Mayan of Many Bees, Jarrett Sir, Organic Emerald, Sam Myers, Jackson Daniel 42, Pepster Mogus, Gethin Jones, Profound Worm, Aki Strider, and Brian Adamson. Do you want to save us all from dysentery and certain death while we go up the reverse Oregon Trail? Or are you just a fan of audio essays and comics and exclusives? Then become a patron right now and get access to all of it for an entire month, no matter when you join. Now, y'all stay safe out there for me. Bye. All right, Pip, you got the wagon all hitched up? You got some coupons for fried pork chop sandwiches? Hell yeah.